Hello, welcome to The Rational Live. I'm your host, David Dole. Time to do some work. So this show took me a long time to prep today. The stories I have here are kind of thick, so there's a lot to some of these. But I'm going to start off with a fairly light, not really light, why did I say that? But I'm starting off with a segment that I'm not going to cut out later, which is why I kind of vaguely highlighted it in the title. But that's just going to be a simple update on what's happening with the convoy, including my appearance on TYT when I was discussing it, because that was part of their video, part of a much larger video they had on it. So I just want to, I think a lot of people maybe missed that. So I just want to show that appearance, as a lot of the content or what I was saying in there is still relevant. And then I will give you a little update on what's happened today in terms of this convoy. And then we'll get to a lot more. But first, before I plug the rest of the show, I have to plug my own show, the general show, therationalnational.com/join. Hit that link below the video in the description box on YouTube. Become a patron or join. Hit the join button on YouTube to join there. Help support the show. Send in super chats. I will answer super chats throughout the stream as well, of course. And a couple of questions here, not super chat, but you highlighted me, so I will, in this instance, respond to you. Kit Cabello says, "Don't you think it would be wrong to fire someone for not getting vaccinated if they are poor and living paycheck to paycheck?" That's like asking, is it wrong to fire somebody for not wearing a shirt to work? Like, if that's what they have to do, you're protecting other people. Like, there are certain things that in society that we just abide by. Vaccines were not a big question until COVID-19. So you have to understand that you have been brainwashed over the last year or so into thinking that this is a scary thing, something to fear, the vaccine. No, this is as simple as any other vaccine you've already had when you were after you were born, to go to school. Everything's normal. Another normal vaccine to participate in society. Not really a big deal. So yeah, I don't like. It's like firing somebody for not wearing a shirt. Just, wear the shirt, get the vax. What the hell's the big deal? Richard says, did you know that even people who got the booster shot can still get COVID? Who are these people? Why are you commenting? Yes, of course. Yes, they can get COVID, obviously, but it's how it impacts you, how the virus impacts you. Why are we still talking about this months, like years, or a year after this vaccine has come out? We all know, we all understand this. Yes, you can get COVID while vaccinated, but the impact on your health is much less with the vaccine than without the vaccine. We are trying to reduce these hospitals filling up with patients, and luckily the Omicron spike is dropping, or Omicron, whatever the hell it's called, Omicron, but it's dropping. So it's going away. This variant is slowly, subsiding, but still, why are we having this question? Yes, you can still get it, but you're a lot better off if you have the vaccine. My God. Can we get a little more, I don't know, different, interesting questions that don't deal with questions that have been answered a million times before? But thank you so much for your questions. All right. Okay. I can't answer every question because I have to prep the show. I have to get to the actual show. So let me start now by giving you a little preview of what's coming up today. Why is this smooth transition on? Here we go. So as I said, I will get to discussing the convoy, and I'll show you a piece of my appearance. It's like a 10-minute appearance. I didn't want to show the whole 10-minute video, but I'll show you just to give you kind of an update on what's been going on with the convoy. I'll show you part of my appearance on TYT discussing it, and then I'll get to a further update on the convoy. But then the real stories. Biden administration, what they are doing to Afghan civilians. Also, Dave Chappelle. I'll weigh in on that story and whether or not it matters. Also, God, there's so many stories I wish I could have had time to break down. Maybe I'll do a quick wrap up at the end. But another story, Joe Rogan fooled again. What was he fooled by? You'll have to wait and see. But also, this is the story that made me pause for a second. Elon Musk's Neuralink caught torturing monkeys. This is one that I do want to do, but I didn't have time to properly break the story down. But it is just a completely disgusting story of animal abuse, assuming it's real, but would not be shocking to find out that it is in fact real. But yeah, and some more stories here. If I get to, I may get to at the end. We'll find out. All right. Let me start with this thing that I will not cut out of this segment because it's going to be very laid back and just kind of chatty. But that is my appearance on the Young Turks. So I was on the Young Turks this week with Anna Kasparian to discuss the convoy that's happening in Ottawa, and now it's going to Toronto. And it's happening all around the country. But I'm sure a lot of you have heard a lot about this already. But there was I thought we had a great conversation on the Young Turks about this, and we go over a lot of the main points. So I'm going to play for you a bit of our discussion here. Of course, TYT is a much longer video. Their whole video is 60 minutes long. So in fact, I'll just show you. So if you want to watch the whole video, you can go and find Exposing the Motivations Behind Canada's Trucker Protest and go watch the whole thing. But let me show you a piece of that appearance right here, and then I'll get to another update on what happened today with the Ontario government's approach to this convoy.
Joining us now is a resident of Canada and also a good friend of the show, David Dole. He is the host and founder of the Rational National, and I'm very happy to invite him on the show right now. So David, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So I want to talk a little bit about the people behind the scenes that are supporting this, funding this, and encouraging this, because I think that there is this misconception in regard to, oh, well, this is a workers' strike, and these are people who are really standing up for themselves. But this couldn't be further than the truth. This definitely has a right-wing bent to it. So can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, and it's important to separate the people that think they're supporting this because they're supporting the truckers versus what this convoy actually is. So first of all, to be clear, about 90% of truckers are vaccinated. They support the mandates. As the vast majority of people in Canada support vax mandates for hospital workers, for people that work in schools. So that aspect of it is definitely a fringe of individuals. But on top of that, what's important to point out is what they are not discussing. So this convoy, while claiming to stand up for the working class, 17% of federally regulated employees work in trucking, yet they make up about 80% of labor standards violations between 2006 and 2018, which includes things like wage theft, like misclassifying employees as contractors to skirt regulators. So these are actual working class issues that could be raised in a convoy like this if it was about the working class truckers. But in reality, what you are seeing, the minority that are there, most of them are the actual owners of these companies that mistreat their workers. So by this idea of twisting it around and acting like this is a working class uprising, when the vast majority of the working class people support vaccines, support mandates, as well as the truckers do, is just, absurd.
David, it's so important that you highlighted that because I think that detail gets left out in much of the reporting, certainly here in the States, right? I mean, you have to do a lot of digging to figure out who's really behind this.
But there is definitely a question that this really just appears to be a way to try and bring the anti-vax, anti-mandate sentiment and funnel these people into a more right-wing message. And that's what they've done with oil and gas workers in the past couple of years. Very similar organizers behind that kind of movement have also been behind this movement. So it seems to be this effort to really try and recruit for the right by using this anti-vax sentiment. And that was also, shown during the last election as well in Canada, where there was this, sentiment, as Americans have, the fringe of individuals that don't believe in vaccines. There was that attempt to try and grab those people and funnel them into a more right-wing party in Canada, being the People's Party of Canada. But yes, people have issues. Of course, we're all tired of this virus. We're all pissed off, and that's why at the beginning of this convoy, it had a lot of support because people are tired of these lockdowns. They're tired of having to wear a mask. But you have to think about it for just a second. Pretending the virus is gone is not going to make the virus go away. We have to actually deal with it. We have to have these public measures in place.
I mean, it's kind of becoming clearer and clearer what the real intentions and motivations are here. The fact that this is really a demonstration by employers rather than actual workers is an important point to make. But the thing that really stands out to me is the failure of the government and law enforcement to get things under control. It's something that we see here in the United States as well. And it worries me because it shows you the vulnerability and the weakness of our institutions. And so what do you see at play in regard to law enforcement? Why have they had such a difficult time getting things under control?
Honestly, because they're not Indigenous protesters, they're not Black Lives Matter, they're not environmentalists, so it's not as much of an issue for them as if it were, one of those groups. That ultimately is the problem here. But again, that doesn't mean, this is an issue I struggle with as well because I don't want to encourage the police to go out there, and knock some skulls. So we have to have a sort of approach here that makes sense. But it's just to point out the hypocrisy where, if Indigenous protesters were in Ottawa for a week honking their horn, like this would have been over in 12 hours. The police would have been out there, would have arrested everybody. But it's a much different approach when it's this convoy. And that should give people pause to maybe realize, hey, what is this really about? And when you see like swastikas flying or you see the Confederate flag there, if that appeared at a Black Lives Matter protest or a environmentalist protest or Indigenous protest, that flag would be ripped away immediately. That person kicked out of that protest because they're not part of what that movement is. Yet here, they're accepted and it's fine. So you can't just say, oh, one or two people are doing this. If they allow these sorts of people flying these kinds of symbols into this group, that shows you what the entire group is about.
Wow, Canadian Confederates. What a sight to see.
It was amazing to see.
Yeah, really. It's incredible.
Yeah.
All right. Well, there we go. So that was a lot of the information is already in there, so I'm not going to go over what I said. But to give you a quick update since then, so we have a lot more information now, or just a bit more information in terms of where some of the money is coming from. I didn't want to get too deep into that on the show because it really still isn't clear exactly where it's coming from. But you can imagine there isn't $10 million out of nowhere for a convoy like this in Canada. So there has been now clearly a lot of money coming from abroad, especially the States, and that's just what's public. Most of the money is coming from anonymous sources, and GoFundMe was pulled down, and that they've now moved to a different crowdfunding platform. And I think there's now issues, or they're going to attempt to pull that one down. I'm not completely updated on the whole money situation there, but they are getting money from, a variety of places that is not, the working class of Canada, because this is not a working class uprising. As I said in there, the majority of Canadians support, yes, the vaccines and vaccine mandates, both. You can look at several polls on that. It's very clear. Now, and any sentiment any genuine sentiment this convoy may have had at the beginning has now kind of just dispersed, because it's been clear over these past 2 weeks what this convoy has, if it wasn't this before, what it has now become. And you look at the organizers behind this convoy, many of them attached to far right-wing crazy views like white nationalism, several of them involved in that shit. So, and there's videos of them talking about this, the videos of the same people that are the organizers. So it's very clear who is behind, who is pushing this. And one of their big goals right now, they have kind of they aren't even really addressing at this point the health aspect of this, the mandates. The organizers now are more focused on getting rid of Trudeau. I don't like Trudeau either, but you can't just say Prime Minister leave. That's not how a democracy works. So you can tell their true motivations are now coming out. But today, Ontario declared a state of emergency in response to these convoy protests. So, quote, this will include protecting international border crossings, 400 series highways, airports, ports, bridges, and railways. It will also include protecting the safe and essential movement of ambulatory and medical services, public transit, municipal and provincial roadways, as well as pedestrian walkways, Ford said. So fines for non-compliance will be severe, with a maximum penalty of $100,000 and up to a year imprisonment. We will also provide additional authority to consider taking away the personal and commercial licenses of anyone who doesn't comply with these orders. So they are, after 2 weeks, now enforcing the law that would have been applied much earlier if it was any other group except for this convoy. But I want to point out, he cut this part out of the conference. Just Doug Ford, this is the premier of Ontario, who is now helping to institute this state of emergency. He was asked about his vacation last weekend, and I just thought this was a fun moment.
Miller from CTV News.
Hold up.
This was a pretty consequential weekend, this last weekend in Ontario. You call it a siege. Ottawa police said it was an insurrection. A day later, Ottawa police, or the city of Ottawa, declared a state of emergency. On Saturday, there was, of course, a large-scale protest in downtown Toronto. There have been a lot of questions about you and your visibility. Premier, CTV News has obtained photos of you in cottage country. We've spoken with people who took pictures with you who say you were snowmobiling on Saturday, Premier. Can you explain why you decided to go snowmobiling during a stated insurrection and siege in Ottawa?
Let me make it very clear, Colin. I've been on this phone almost 24/7, along with the premiers, U.S. ambassadors, the governor, the prime minister, around the clock. Make no mistake, I have been engaged from the second this has happened, and I'll be continuing being engaged with the authorities that we need to talk to.
Fair enough, but you are not dismissing what I'm saying here. I'm asking you, Premier, were you snowmobiling on Saturday in cottage country while Ottawa was under siege, as you say?
Let me tell you, Colin, I was at the cottage. I went out on my snowmobile. I take calls till 1 o'clock in the morning. I get calls before 6 o'clock in the morning, and I will not stop until we get this taken care of.
Miller.
So that's a yes. He was out snowmobiling last weekend while this was apparently a siege. So it just shows you our clown premier. But there you go. It took 2 weeks. He's doing something now, but it took a couple of weeks to get something done. But I saw this today. So if you want, constant updates on what's going on, here's an account to follow. Dean Blundell, who was a radio show host that I used to listen to way back in the day on my drives to work in like 2005 or 6 or something. But I'm not sure what he's doing now, but he has been covering what's been going on here in this convoy. And he shared this, which is just wild. So this apparently is from a Facebook group called Freedom Convoy to Ottawa. These children were so proud blocking the Canadian bridge. This is disgusting. Putting their little kids' bodies on the line here to block this bridge for their Flu Trucks Clan bullshit. Yeah, there you go. And this is just examples in terms of how the media has been treated. Obviously, there's a lot more examples if you include civilians at large and how they've been treated by this convoy. But I'm not even sure if I should. This is too much to read off. But pulling up some examples here. CTV's Jeremy Sharon was interrupted and yelled at and eventually opted to leave the scene. Abigail Bimman received anti-Semitic expletive-filled email. Other people, yelling fake news at them, all this shit. Anyways, there's countless examples of CTV's Evan Sullivan had beer can thrown at him and his cameraman. Yeah, so a lot of examples of that. But when you see a convoy with, swastikas and Confederate flags, it shows you what it's about. Again, if those symbols appeared in a Black Lives Matter protest or, Indigenous protest or environmentalist protest, that would be ripped away immediately. Those people kicked out. But here they're accepted. They're part of the group. Tells you everything you need to know. All right. So that's a quick little update on what's been going on here. Hopefully this will not have to be discussed again. I'm just tired of talking about this topic. But I'm going to prep the next story, which is about the Biden administration and how they are screwing over Afghan civilians. So I will be right back. All right, here we go. My hair is too big now. I need a haircut and I really don't want to get one. So, maybe I'll end up with long hair again. It's just, I don't know. Haircuts are a whole thing. All right. Try to look presentable here, but whatever. After the U.S. needlessly bombed Afghanistan for 20 years, the Biden administration is now stealing billions of dollars from Afghan civilians. while pretending they're doing something noble. Now, I will say there is a little more to this story than my intro. It's a little more complicated than that, but I'll do my best to break it down here. So President Biden has now signed an executive order splitting $7 billion in Afghan assets that were frozen by the U.S. government. This is money that the Afghan central bank kept at the Federal Reserve Bank in New York before their government was dissolved and the Taliban took over. So more here from the New York Times. The Taliban, now in control of Afghanistan, immediately claimed a right to the money, but a group of relatives of victims of the September 11th attacks, one of several sets who had won default judgments against the group in once seemingly quixotic lawsuits years ago, sought to seize it to pay off that debt. Meanwhile, the economy in Afghanistan has been collapsing, leading to a mass starvation that is in turn creating an enormous and destabilizing new wave of refugees and raising a clear need for extensive spending on humanitarian relief. So on the 9/11 aspect of this story, the relatives of the victims of 9/11, this is what that case is about. So more September 11th victims who sued the Taliban want frozen Afghan funds. So this seems a little hard to actually, be successful in a suit like this, but apparently that appears to be what Joe Biden is trying to solve here by cutting half of this money out for these victims. Now, I'll get to some reactions from these victims. Some are not in support of this. So it's not, ripping money away that belongs to Afghanistan, that belongs to the people there, is not the solution to something like this. Now, a little more on the, just to be clear. So yeah, the $7 billion belongs to Afghanistan. So half is going to go to humanitarian relief for Afghanistan, and then the other half is going to be put towards this aspect or this lawsuit here to try and compensate these victims. But a little more here from the AP. So the UN last month issued an appeal for nearly $5 billion, its largest ever appeal for one country, predicting nearly 90% of the country's 38 million people were surviving below the poverty level of $1.90 a day. The UN also warned that upward of 1 million children risked starvation. David Miliband, head of the International Rescue Committee, urged release of the funds to prevent famine at a Senate Judiciary Subcommittee hearing on the matter on Wednesday. Quote, the humanitarian community did not choose the government, but that is no excuse to punish the people, and there is a middle course to help the Afghan people without embracing the new government, Miliband said. So he's basically pointing out here that, sure, we didn't pick the Taliban to run Afghanistan, but that doesn't mean this money still doesn't belong to Afghanistan. And as you'll see here, some victims, at least one in this case that's quoted in this piece, agrees that this money does not belong to them. It does belong to the Afghan civilians. But of course, there's differing opinions on this. So first, quote here, I lost my wife on 9/11 due to the Taliban's support for terrorism, Mr. Melendez said. Quote, I became a single parent to 2 of my 4 sons and then lost my house. First of all, I have to stop. It's not like, this is not the full story. Clearly, there were others at play here. Just because you had, a terrorist try and hide themselves, at least shortly, in Afghanistan, does not mean that the war was necessary, that the Afghan government was behind it or the civilians were behind it. So I understand his anger, his frustration. He lost his loved one, but you can't have misguided anger here in terms of where you think that money should be coming from. But he goes on to say here, I became a single parent of 2 of my 4 sons and then lost my house. I've never received any money against my judgment. I think some money should go to humanitarian relief for the Afghan people, but I also want my legal judgment to be fully honored. But not all relatives of the September 11th victims agree. This week, Barry Amundsen, whose brother Craig was killed in the Pentagon that day, said his group, September 11th Families for Peaceful Tomorrows, thought all of the money should go to benefit Afghans. Quote, I can't think of a worse betrayal of the people of Afghanistan than to freeze their assets and give it to 9/11 families, Mr. Amundsen said. While 9/11 families are seeking justice for their loss through these suits, I fear that the end result of seizing this money will be to cause further harm to innocent Afghans who have already suffered greatly. You know who's also a victim of 9/11? Afghan civilians. So to try and take half of this money that belongs to Afghan civilians to try and fulfill some wishes of some misguided anger from 9/11 victims' families, it's just completely misguided. It doesn't make any sense. And ultimately, as it says here, it's going to make the situation worse. It's not going to solve anything. It's going to create more resentment, more anger, and that clearly is not a way to solve the problem. That said, yeah, I would love to see, these people get compensated, but to take someone else's money to solve that problem is not the solution. All right, that's that story. Just completely ridiculous. All right, I'm going to prep the next one. Got some Dave Chappelle coming up, so I will be right back. All right, I am back. So I saw some comments here. Someone mentioned how you have to make sure the money goes into the right hands. Well, they're already giving half the money to Afghanistan. Like, they're releasing half the money. So clearly, they have no problem releasing some money. They're not worried about this money getting into the hands of the wrong people. So why can't you release all of it? It's not, this is the thing. It's not the US government's money. It's not theirs to say who should have it. It should be released. All you are doing is trying to continue to police the world, and we know how that's gone for the last 50 years. That's not the solution here. Just to think that it may go into the wrong hand. That's the same excuse they use for invasions. Like, oh, we have to make sure to kill these people so they don't kill any more people. Meanwhile, the US government is killing the most people. Like, it's all a big ruse. So don't fall into that mindset. Like, it's not their money to decide, ultimately. And you have, as you, like, the fucking, like, UN is against this. Like, they're calling out how they are facing serious famine here. They need help. And to not release all those assets to the people that or to the country that it belongs to is just absurd. Okay. Should we do Chappelle? So I waited on this story because I wanted, full context. I wanted to make sure that this was what actually went on is what actually went on. And yeah, we will see, right? Let's get to it. While comedian Dave Chappelle is not the reason for a lack of affordable housing in America, he is a huge reason for why there won't be affordable housing in his community of Yellow Springs, Ohio. So this is a story that has blown up, and while I don't think it's as important as the attention that it's getting, it's still worth discussing and showcasing why there is, at least partially why, there is a this consistent push against affordable housing from those that otherwise you think would support affordable housing for people that need it. Now, before I get to this video of Dave Chappelle at this town hall meeting, I want to show you, because it's very clear what went on here. So you have a company in Yellow Springs that owns this land. They have two options here. They can go with the planned unit development, the PUD, or the current zoning. So current zoning is single family only, starting at mid 300,000, high income for sale, only high income homes for sale, and that kind of gives you the breakdown there. Meanwhile, the PUD, what was being proposed, is you have multiple types of homes, so single family, duplexes, and townhomes, starting at mid 200,000, and you have a affordable type, so moderate income, for sale, affordable type. So there was a piece of this that had affordable housing. Now, not enough. Oftentimes, these kinds of companies include this to help subsidize the other homes they're building. So, that's why companies do this. They don't do it because out of the goodness of their heart to have affordable housing. It's for the incentives associated with having that affordable housing, with offering that. So it was being offered, again, not enough, but it was in this plan, the PUD plan, and this is exactly the plan that Dave Chappelle is against. So here he is, and again, one of these two are going through. So either you are for one, like the good one, or you are against it and you're for the other one. Here is Dave Chappelle speaking out against this plan, the plan that includes affordable housing.
Hi, I'm Dave Chappelle. I just want to say, and Marianne, I could talk to you about this privately. I don't know why the village council would be afraid of litigation from a $24 million a year company while they X out a $65 million a year company. I cannot believe you would make me audition for you. You look like clowns. I am not bluffing. I will take it all off the table. That's all. Thank you.
Okay. All right, so that's very clear. There is Dave Chappelle threatening to pull his investments from the town if they don't do what he says. Well, they caved. So yes, Yellow Springs Village Council rejects the PUD. So they're going with the one that does not have the affordable housing. Now again, Dave Chappelle isn't the reason why there isn't enough affordable housing in America. He's not the reason. But he's an example of what happens in these town hall meetings where they constantly push back, where the residents there in these more higher income areas push back against the opportunity for affordable housing. He's an example of that. Now, to break it down even clearer, here is a great tweet from Paul E. Williams. The optimal outcome is thousands of social housing units. What could have been is hundreds of apartments and duplexes, a park, and free land for subsidized housing. What they will get is a bunch of $500,000 single family homes. Third option, clearly worst. So that is what went on here. Yes, what was offered by the company was not enough. There should be social housing units, but in spite of that, or not having that, they have these other potential more inexpensive units and subsidized housing, but instead they have the plan with just the wealthy single family homes. Now, there was disagreement on this from the residents. So most people supported Dave Chappelle's position, but others did not. So some reactions here. While the majority of speakers were opposed to the proposed development, several villagers spoke in favor of the PUD proposal. Elias Jacobs said he supported the PUD because it included land set aside for affordable housing. Quote, in the absence of something better, we need to look seriously at what's on offer, Jacobs said. Sometimes a bird in the hand is better than two in the bush. His sentiment was echoed by Eve Fleck, who lives near the development, and Patricia Brown, who owns a home in a PUD. Both Fleck and Brown said they believe the PUD was the better option. Quote, I live in a PUD now, Brown said. We have very expensive houses. We have Home Inc. houses. We have medium houses. We have all getting along, and we all love each other. A community that has all of this stuff is much better than one that only has one part of it. Vote for the PUD, please. So some dissenting voices there, but they ultimately went with, I imagine, they caving to Dave Chappelle's pressure there. Pulling out, $65 million from the community is a big deal. When you have that kind of wealth, that kind of power in a small community like this, you can essentially run the town. And that's what Dave Chappelle appears to be doing. Now, his spokesperson came out to react to this, saying neither Dave nor his neighbors are against affordable housing. However, they are against the poorly vetted cookie-cutter sprawl-style development deal, which has little regard for community culture and infrastructure of the village, which makes absolutely no sense considering they are going with the other deal. It's the same company. They're going with the other one. Like, one had affordable housing, the other one didn't. To show you a meme to help to explain this, sometimes memes can be useful. Here again, Paul E. Williams shares this. Are y'all with the NIMBYs? The not in my backyards. This person replies, Dave Chappelle spokesperson, neither Dave nor his neighbors are against affordable housing. However, they are against the poorly vetted cookie-cutter sprawl-style development deal, which has little regard for community, culture, and infrastructure of the village. Yep, this is it. So, to make it even more clear, I have a little special gift for you here. Now, if this is copyrighted, then I'm sorry, people watching on YouTube later. You're not going to see this. I'll have to cut it out of the video. But if not, here is George Carlin talking about this very thing.
These people need houses, physical, tangible structures. But where are you going to put them? Where are you going to build them? Nobody wants you to build low-cost housing near their house. People don't want it near them. We got something in this country, you've heard of it, it's called NIMBY, N-I-M-B-Y. Not in my backyard. People don't want any kind of social help located anywhere near them. You try to open up a halfway house, try to open up a rehab center for drugs or alcohol, try to build a little home for some retarded people who want to work their way into the community. People say, not in my backyard. People don't want anything near them, especially if it might help somebody else. Part of the great American spirit of generosity we're always told about. Big, generous American nation. Ask an Indian about that. Ask an Indian how generous this country is. If you can find one, you gotta locate the Indian first. We've made him just a little difficult to find. Or if you need current data, select a black family at random and ask them how generous this country has been. People don't want anything near them, even if it's something they believe in.
There you go. George Carlin, one of the greats. And if that was cut out in the separate segment on YouTube, I will link to the full video below so you can go watch this this piece here. But again, just to reiterate, Dave Chappelle is not the reason for a lack of affordable housing in America, but this does show you the attitude that often discourages these sorts of developments. Okay, there we go. I hope that was a measured approach. I mean, it's like claiming that we can't complain about Elon Musk or, I don't know, Jeff Bezos because they aren't the system. Like, yes, the system is the problem. I agree, but we can still point out when these people do things that are actively hurting society, and there's nothing wrong with doing that. Okay, a lot of super chats that I forgot to grab. So let me grab some of these now before I go to the next break and do the next story. Fly Chomperfly says, congrats on your appearance on TYT. Oh, thank you. I've been on several times. It wasn't, a huge deal. But I like being on with Anna, especially. Anna is very nice, very accommodating, very kind, very smart, very intelligent. Check out. In fact, it's clear over the years, Anna has moved more and more to the left. She's discusses. She's been influenced by Michael Brooks, and you can see that in her reporting. Discusses a lot of working class issues. That same day I was on, she brought up a topic I didn't even know about: concrete workers striking in Seattle. So, she covered, it's crazy to me, like, with the kind of shit that people like Anna get online when they do some of the best work. They do actual reporting, like, not, fucking drama videos about this person says this shit or this person fights with this person. They do actual real reporting covering actual working class issues, and it often goes ignored. So check out that video that they did on the striking concrete workers, because I don't think anyone else covered that. But next chat here. Have you seen Gary Chambers' Congress ads? Ads fire. Yes. I saw the first one. I did hear he had a new one. I don't think I saw the new one. But Gary Chambers is definitely somebody that I would like to see in the Senate. But of course, he's in a hard race. Ben Shapeward says, during the September 2018 Ottawa tornadoes, we had to scroll past a stickled Ford Fest tweet to get updates, or a stickied Ford Fest tweet to get updates from Premier Ford. I don't even remember there being tornadoes in Ottawa, but I don't doubt it. Rhino Wiki says Stanford scientists make catalyst that turns carbon into fuel 1,000 times more efficiently. Can be used to get coal plants to capture carbon for profit. Interesting. I know nothing about this, but thank you, Ryan. Still Alive says you should watch Vosh's segment on the Dave Chappelle thing. It's not as bad towards Dave as the media is making it out to be. Well, I just covered it, so it's unlikely. I consume very little political content that I've already done outside of work. But like, I've discussed who I watch. I watch Progressive Voice for a lot of the fun stuff. I watch R.M. Brown because he covers things a lot differently than I do, and he's hilarious. I'll watch the occasional TYT segment on stuff I haven't covered, like that concrete strike. And Mike Figueredo, I also watch. And, here and there, I'll check out some other videos, but I'm not, I don't consume a lot of, that said, I do watch some of Vosh. I think Vosh is really good at formulating his arguments. But unless he has some new information on the Chappelle thing, I don't know what else he could have brought up in that. Brenda R says, I think there is a good chance the affordable housing is used to make a plan look good. Dave has never fought for it in actuality before now either. Well, it's a recent development, right? Like, he's not going to fight against affordable housing before it's in his backyard, but he's doing it now because it's in his backyard. I agree with, but I can completely agree with you that yes, as I discussed in that piece, yes, these companies include this affordable housing piece to try and make themselves look more progressive. And ultimately, they're doing it for various incentives that they get for proposing those kinds of things. So again, no one here is claiming that, first of all, that's even the solution, because it wasn't enough affordable housing. There should be actual social housing that is developed on a mass scale. But still, we can't ignore, the anti-affordable housing sentiment that a lot of these sorts of communities have, and Dave Chappelle having as much money as he does, as much power as he does, and influence that he does in that village. I mean, he displayed it right there. Like, he's a little disconnected from the average working class person. That isn't to say, he's not funny. I still think Dave Chappelle is funny. He has good comedy, but that was more to show you the power that money and an individual like that can have on a small community when a kind of proposal like that is put forward. Master Redcoin says, Dave Chappelle, are you really against affordable housing? Dave, good morning, Sunday morning. All right. I will be right back, prepping the next story as I lose my voice. Let's hope this water helps. All right, this is my favorite story of the day. I don't think I hyped this one up enough. This is a great, fantastic story. And big shout out to Mike Figueredo, who I have included in my story here, as he's the one that turned me on to this. Though I did see a tweet about it, but he had a fantastic breakdown. So I'll link to his video below mine as well. But here we go. Joe Rogan was fooled once again by another bullshit story. Now, to be fair to him, a lot of outlets reported this as if it were true. So this shows you how conservatives have manufactured outrage, have just invented it out of thin air to try and garner clicks. This is a perfect example of that. So first, before I get to the clips here, which are both from Joe Rogan and Fox News, I just want to show you some of the headlines. So it was about Adele. Adele apparently being criticized over Brit's award speech after saying she loves being a woman. Wow. I can't believe they criticized her. There's story after story about this. Newsweek. Adele's I Love Being a Woman Brit Award speech sparks transphobia debate. Page 6. Adele slammed for telling gender-neutral award show she loves being a woman. Oh my, those crazy lefties trying to slam Adele for saying she's a woman. Amazing. Toronto Sun here. Adele draws fire for declaring she loves being a woman at Genderless Brits. Oh my God. This one, The Federalist. Adele loves being a woman, just like other females whose spaces are being erased for inclusivity. Now, what's amazing about this Federalist story is they are so unaware that they actually have to admit in the piece that Adele's comments surprisingly received little significant backlash. Like, they're the only ones here that apparently that apparently aren't aware they are in on a fake story, because they actually recognize that we didn't see much about this, even though a lot of people covered it, even though some media outlets highlighted random tweets smearing the artist of the year. So this was all over 2 tweets. 2. So I will show you in a second here what those were. But first, here is some reaction from both Fox News and Joe Rogan.
So Adele did this. I mean, I don't know what you would call it. They were calling it gender neutral, some gender neutral thing. And she talked about how much she loved being a woman. And they were mad at her.
Becoming the woke folks' next target. Uh-oh. She's accused of transphobia by declaring she loves being a woman at the gender-neutral award show Tuesday.
While the critics are lobbing attacks at the musician for saying that she's proud to be a woman.
It's very offensive.
They slammed her. She was slammed for telling a gender-neutral award show that she loves being a woman. Like, you can't love being a woman.
People on social media were outraged, some calling her a trans-exclusionary radical feminist.
You really have to be sort of a bulletproof brand, an institution like an Adele, like a Chappelle, to even begin to sort of puncture a little air into this sort of liberal orthodoxy.
You have to be gender neutral, like us. Be like us. We're so tolerant.
I'm appalled. She loves being a woman.
That's so outrageous. Intolerant.
Yeah, really.
She should be tolerant and just be like them only. And only think like them. All the they, them people, she should only be like them.
This was over 2 tweets. You got multiple Fox News stories. You have Joe Rogan commenting on this because he falls for anything. But to be fair, again, a lot of places covered this, including like Newsweek. Well, page 6, you expect it. But like Newsweek, they should be a little better. But absolutely insane. So the first tweet I can't show you because it is now, this person has protected their account. I guess they don't like the attention they've now gotten. But not many followers here. This is just, some random account. The other one, 19 likes. 19 likes. This was the other source for this. Who would have thought Adele was a transphobe and would use her platform to call for the destruction of the trans community, especially the confused teenagers? So, like, their profile picture is Adele making a weird face. So, like, this appears to be a hate account on Adele. Like, this is one of the sources for this story, this massive story, making all these headlines. In fact, the opposite view got a lot more attention. So here's a tweet saying, so Adele's a bit turfy then? Good. Here's a person supporting, not even that Adele is doing this, but the idea that she's doing this person supporting that, and this has over 2,000 likes. Now, Mike Figueredo of the Humanist Report did a fantastic piece on this. I want to highlight a little thing that he did to show you how ridiculous this coverage was.
Very small Twitter accounts with a combined total of 21 likes. That specifically is what warranted multiple outlets making a story about this. Now, to put this into perspective for you, I decided to tweet out the word fart with no context. And that tweet got more likes and retweets than both of the aforementioned Adele outrage tweets combined in less than 15 minutes, thus making it far more newsworthy than the supposed outrage over Adele's comments. So by their own standards, for what they deem newsworthy, it seems like they should be writing an article about my fart tweet. No? Hey, Newsweek, where's the article? Page 6, aren't you going to talk about this fart tweet? It got more engagement than the thing that you wrote an article about, but yet that's apparently worthy of an entire news cycle.
I love that Mike did that. That's hilarious. Tweeting out fart, showing that it got a lot more engagement than this massive story covered on Fox News, on Joe Rogan, on Newsweek, on Page 6. Just so completely ridiculous. It shows you how the right manufactures this kind of outrage when it does not exist. They do all of this simply for the clicks. And then what it does is it creates this sentiment towards the trans community. Oh, they're so intolerant. Meanwhile, this story is just completely manufactured. All right, my favorite story of the day exposes how bullshit media operates. Now, let me get to some chats, some more chats. I think I saw one more here in the super. Car Wash Freak says Trump's supporters and Capitol rioters are running for local state races, and governments letting these people run is threat. How do we fight against it? By running against them. Ultimately, that's the only solution here. It is a serious issue. Nomiki Konst has covered a lot of that as well. How you're having a lot of these like Proud Boys types run for not even just like, you know, local office, like school boards, like just base level, more working class, actual working class people that care about society, that want to improve society. They have to run for these positions, run for these lower level positions. You have to have your voice heard, because what you're seeing now is these schools in various states now, including Texas, I think Pennsylvania, a couple others, they are now banning books that educate children on issues like race, on LGBTQ. Like they're banning these books because they are offensive to this very tiny community of people. But because that tiny community controls the school boards, controls government, they're able to ban these books. So you have to, the only solution is to counteract their power with your own power. And that starts at a base level. And this is the issue that the left runs into, is there isn't really a central organizing or fundraising apparatus the way that the right has. So the right has billionaires, you know, just funding whatever the hell that interests them. First of all, my light is really dark. Just realized. Sorry, just caught me off guard. See if I can raise this up a little bit. Great. There may be issues now with this green screen if all the videos were this dark. Look at that. That's better. Anyways, like I was saying, the only way to combat it is to run, ultimately. And yeah, because they have the apparatus, that the fundraising, you know, mechanisms in place to raise this kind of money, or just having people, wealthy individuals, just throw money at these school boards. They're having this massive head start that and they've had it for, this has been their project for decades now. And you're beginning to see, you know, the results of that investment. But yeah. All right. What was I going to say? Those are the main stories. There's stuff that can I make a wrap up quickly? Is it possible? It's not possible. It's not possible. Not possible. Some of these stories too, I may just record something over the weekend to do some extra videos. I don't know. 'Cause there's a lot that I would like to discuss here that's sitting in front of me. But we won't do that. Instead, let's chat. Let's chat. How are all of you doing? Just going through the chat now. Of course, I'll answer every super chat, but if you want to send in, you know, a normie chat, I will try and grab what I can, what I find interesting. But my text is really, really small on screen. Jesus Christ. There we go. Let me just double. I feel like did I miss a story today? I covered the convoy. I covered the Biden administration. I covered Dave Chappelle. No, I covered it all. Okay. I don't know why. It felt kind of light. All right. Let's see here. Karl Marx says conservatives don't want their kids learning that bigotry is bad. I know. Lonzetta says, David, please tell me you saw the Alex Jones rant about Pac-Man. I did. It was actually I watched I think I watched Kyle Kalinski's coverage of that. But hilarious. Just hilarious. I don't even know what to say to that. Alex Jones is a character. Tyler VG, did your TYT appearance give you a bump? I don't think so. I mean, nothing against TYT, but we serve, similar audiences. I don't think it really, again, I've been on there before, so it wasn't like, I wasn't showing up on a completely different kind of network or anything. The only, shows that would really give channels like ours a bump is, serving or being in front of like very different audiences. So like a cable news audience or a mainstream podcast. Like I saw Matt Binder, who started a new venture now, or a new podcast about called Scam Economy. It's about a lot about crypto and Bitcoin and NFTs. He was on Busy Phillips' podcast, who's an actress, and like that's the kind of attention that I think does help to grow channels like this or like his, because it exposes your channel, your podcast, whatever, to a very different audience. Like Busy Phillips, we're talking about like wine moms, like listen to Busy Phillips. So it's a very different kind of podcast, but it's especially for him, it's very important to get that kind of voice out there, because there's a lot of the mainstream view on cryptocurrency and NFTs is very pro crypto, pro NFTs. So Matt Binder, it was good to hear him on there, and I listened to a bit of the interview because I was just curious how the interaction was with an audience like that. But it's really important to get that kind of perspective out there in a mainstream space, and it was good to see that. Lloyd Tackwell says you should run for office. Been there, done that. I'm good. Maybe in my old age, if when I get old, maybe, I don't know. I'll run for like school board, something like that. But I'm fine. Tyler VG says, imagine getting on The View. Yeah, like something like getting on The View. That's what would help. If The View invited me on, I'm down for that. But no, definitely. I gotta say though, generally, I hope TYT isn't watching this because I don't want to offend them here. But I really don't like doing appearances, like just because, not just them, like generally, because it's like half my day. I gotta, anytime I have to do anything on anyone else's show, I want to make sure I'm like, prepped, I'm prepared, and it just, it takes time away from me doing my own stuff. So I don't often like doing that kind of thing, which is also part of the reason why I don't invite a lot of people on the show. I don't do many interviews because honestly, I feel like I'm bothering people. If I ask somebody to do an interview, I feel like I'm bothering them. So I tend to avoid doing that unless they engage me first, in which case I'm fine if someone wants to come on the show. And I tend to only I won't talk to anybody. I want to talk to people who like have a perspective they want to share in terms of maybe they wrote an article. Like I'm going to talk to next week Owen Higgins, and I've had him on before, but I like talking to journalists and the occasional like actual journalist and the occasional politician. What else? Typical Canadian says, I've enjoyed Lance from the Surf's coverage of the trucker stuff. Lance is great. The Surfs do fantastic work. And actually, I was on his show a couple weeks ago as well. talking about masculinity. I forget the title, but it was like I don't know, but it was about like positive male role models kind of thing, to try and combat the toxic masculinity. So it was a good discussion. Mark says you should do Masked Singer. Yeah, I don't think I'm big enough to to go on Masked Singer. That's hilarious though. I've never watched that show. I've just seen like, images of it. So I kind of have an idea what it's about, but that'd be funny. Shut up. Did this actually happen? Bavaria. Did you see the clip with Rebel News being interviewed on the Hill? I gotta look this up. Was Ryan Grimm on that day? Because he should have objected. You don't. Rebel News is like talking to Alex Jones. Are you fucking stupid? Like, I get, what the Hill tries to do. And I'm glad Ryan Grimm is there to try and combat a lot of the bullshit coming from the other side, but it's just a stupid show. It's a very stupid show. But I did not see that. I don't know if I want to watch it on here, but I'm not gonna find. God, they post. How many videos a day did they post? Jesus Christ Almighty! Look at this shit. All today. Like what the 4 minutes ago, 34 minutes ago, 1 hour ago, 1 hour ago, 1 hour ago, 2 hours. Okay, well, assuming they're there somewhere, I assume it was a Convoy video, right? 20 hours. Okay, I'm not sure when this Rebel discussion happened. But crazy shit. Absolutely crazy to talk to those people. Hilarious. See, this is why I enjoy the chat. I get to learn things. I'm one person, so I only have limited, a limited ability to be able to see what's going on in the world. I miss many stories a day. Did not know that happened. VJ says Kim Ivermectin is a perfect fit. Grifter Tulsi supporting anti-left reactionary doomer. There's literally a video of her saying she votes Republican now. So like, there's not even, if you're under any illusions before, it's pretty clear. Howie Z says, or Zed, look at me taking on American language. Howie Zed says, is this guy right or left? New here. I'm forward, not left, not right, but forward. No, I'm for the working class. So however you want to categorize that, do so as you wish. I think healthcare for all should be a given. Everyone should have healthcare for all. So how would you categorize that? It's up to you. I think it's clearly there's only one side that's even arguing that right now, but you may think differently. But healthcare for all seems like a no-brainer, and yeah. Miridicia Nader says, are you familiar with the familiarities between libertarian politics and Mexican politics? It's a personal opinion. I've noticed being raised in Mexico and living in Mexico for almost 10 years. I do not know the connection between those two. I'm not familiar. How do you define working class? Well, working class are people that work for capitalists. But generally, I care about helping society as a whole. I care about people having health care, having a living wage, being able to have a home, being able to raise a family if they choose to. I care about equal rights, human rights, wealth equality, or addressing wealth inequality, but I want to limit suffering and increase happiness. That is my goal. Donald James says, would you go on Rogan? Honestly, I don't know. And I'm saying this because I think there are like 20 people ahead of me that should go on there before I'm ever even invited on. I have no illusions about my place in this world. Like I'm not that big of a YouTuber compared to some other people. But even apart from that, like if I were honestly, I'll be honest. If I were to get an invite, I would randomly, which would be weird. I don't think I would ever get one. But if I were to be invited, I would ask him to have on some other people first. I would tell him to have on people like, I don't know, Sam Cedar, Hassan, maybe Vosh, have on some journalists like Luke Savage, who I think is a fantastic writer. People like Owen Higgins, who I have had on the show as well. I don't know. Check out like guests that I've had on the show, like actual journalists. Have those people on. Walker Bregman, another one. Like there are people that are. This shows you how disjointed or divided his show really is, because he's had on no actual like left-wing voices except for, and I'm talking about like thinkers, people that are well known in the space, people like Cornel West that he had on him or had him on once. Bernie Sanders, of course, running for president, but had him on. And yes, he deserves credit for having them on, but that was like 3 years ago. And yes, he's had on, Kyle Kulinski, Pacman, Abby Martin, and some other people. But in terms of like left-wing intellectuals, he's only had on Cornel West. And there should be, in terms of like, look at people that write for Jacobin, people that write for the American Prospect, people that write for the Daily Poster, like David Sirota, he should be on that show. Like there are a lot of people that should be ahead of me. So if I were to be invited, I would, bring those suggestions first before I'm invited on, because I just wouldn't feel right, honestly, to be on that platform when I think a lot of other people that I rely on for my reporting deserve to be on that show before I am. Mehdi Hassan, another great, would be a great guest. And yes, somebody mentioned Brian Holmes here. Sam Cedar shits on Rogan almost every day. Like, I'm aware that like the logistics of it or the likelihood of it, not all that likely for him to invite someone on who shits on him all the time. But if he were open-minded, and it's not like, you bring up Sam here. It's not like he just randomly shits on Rogan. He'll bring up points that are wrong and refute them, just like anyone else does. Like I've done, like Hassan has done, like I don't know, whoever, Vosh, like Kyle Kulinski, or he hasn't really, maybe a couple times, but like Mike Figueredo, like we've refuted Rogan's points with objective reality. Like if he's offended by that, that's his problem. But like we don't do it maliciously. At least I don't do it maliciously. Maybe some people do it, blindly and maliciously. Like I'm very clear about having once been a viewer of his show, and I stopped watching because the show became unwatchable. Just guest after guest of bullshit, just the most ridiculous people. And the last episode I watched was the one at the beginning of the pandemic when he had on that doctor that I referenced in a previous video, where he had on an epidemiologist who, it was actually a great podcast. It was like an actual information-filled episode of what COVID-19 may mean. This is like back in March 2020, the very beginning of this whole thing. What it may mean, what may happen. It was very informative. It was a great discussion. That was the last full episode I've listened to, because even by that point, Rogan had on a lot of mostly right-wing figures in terms of his political discussions and very few left-wing figures. And, since then I'd catch like, maybe clips of like Kyle's appearance or whoever else was on since then. But I don't know. It's just, he seems to have been unwilling or afraid to engage people on the left, because a lot of us have criticized him. But, you have to be willing to understand when you're wrong. And he has apparently been willing to understand that. He put out a video apologizing for some of the shit he has said. So he should be able to grow and, be a man and have some people on that are willing to challenge some of the crap he has spread and the people that he has platformed on his massive platform. Fascist Cringe says, hi from New Zealand. Thoughts on this is all moving. Thoughts on our Canada-style mandate protests. I did not know you had protests going on, so it would be impossible for me to address your protest. But generally, look, if you want to peacefully protest mandates, whatever, that's your right. You can protest mandates. I don't care. I don't agree with you. I think having mandates for hospitals, for schools, for cases where you are interacting with the public on a consistent basis, it makes sense to have vaccine mandates. Most places here don't have vaccine mandates, just hospitals and schools do. But if you want to protest that, whatever, that's your right, protest that. But that's not what the Convoy is. Like, the Convoy is clearly a funnel for right-wing money, right-wing ideas, like far right-wing and white nationalist ideas. That's who the organizers are. They're calling to get rid of Justin Trudeau. Like, it's not even about healthcare anymore. So, if it was about mandates, whatever, have your mandate protest. But that's not what this is about. Daniel Housley says, you downplay your role in the world. Do I? Do you think most of Joe's guests are just opportunity, not deserve? He seems willing to diversify. I don't know what that means. Are just like you mean opportunists that don't deserve it? Is that what you're saying? Do I think most of Joe's guests are, assuming that's what you mean, you're saying, do I think most of Joe's guests are opportunists who don't deserve the platform? I haven't looked at his whole list really since, I don't know. Actually recently I checked just to see which shows were still up, because there were some being pulled down. But no, it depends on the person. So I can't say most or have, like, I don't have an estimate on that. But he's definitely if you go back and check, like, when I was watching this show between like 2013 and 2016, it was a lot more diverse in terms of the political opinions. It's gone downhill since then. He still has on the occasional person who isn't, a lunatic, but it's not as common as it once was. So, like, there are people that have been on there who he gave a platform to, who may have had, a headline or two about them, but they weren't these big people until they were on his show. Jordan Peterson is a great example of that. He helped to launch Jordan Peterson's career. So having people like that on the show, to me, is a problem. Now, if you're going to talk to Peterson about, self-help, then whatever. But if you're going to talk about political issues, then you're talking to a guy who doesn't know shit. David, try for Hot Ones with Sean Evans, outside your box and a fun internet show. You guys are. I appreciate you, Tony, for thinking I'm that big. Like, I can't get on Hot Ones. That's a friggin' massive online show. Like, they have like actual celebrities on that show. But I also stopped eating chicken, so I'm not sure how that would work. But yeah, one day. Maybe, but doesn't seem likely. Violet says, "What are you doing for Valentine's Day? Should be special." I don't know. I really don't. We're probably stuck at home because we have a baby, so can't really do too much. So yeah, I don't know. Jim Bryan says, Byron says, "What do you think of Chris Hedges?" I haven't paid that close attention to him recently because I saw him say some stupid shit. I forget what it was, but it was dumb. So I don't know. There are enough people that I enjoy in this world that I don't need to pay too close attention if I think you begin grifting people. He's definitely had some, like, I've definitely sourced him in the past. He definitely has some very objective and sane opinions, but his turn recently, I don't know. I'm not too. Again, I haven't followed everything he said, so I can't really form a full opinion on where he's gone since I don't really pay attention to him anymore. Paul says, "You watch UFC? Good event this Saturday. Is it? I'll watch the occasional UFC. So maybe. But what else is happening this weekend is there is a new comedy special that I will be paying attention to. And let me see if I could find the link, if there is a link to it. I think they're supposed to be. Anyways, it's David Cross. So David Cross is it's like going live this weekend, I think. So maybe there's no link yet. But David Cross is having his special broadcast live, I think, on YouTube this weekend. So I will be watching that for sure. Fly Chomperfly says, "The reason we like seeing you on TYT is because it helps your exposure, especially since progressives we know have never heard of you." Well, in that case, good. I mean, maybe it helps. I think maybe we're the most, or where that potential audience does come from is their other platforms. Like when it comes to YouTube, we're all being screwed. Like, it's crazy how much they suppress our content. And I've discussed those details a lot in the past. But I think they stream to like other platforms as well that I'm not as familiar with, like other streaming platforms. So maybe in that case it does kind of help. But just generally, like, you know, I grew up, I've discussed this many times, with like serious anxiety. So anytime I'm like on anybody's show, any interaction with anybody is just like a problem. So it's like a whole like mental preparation. That said, I always enjoy when I'm on there and like, or any show, but it's just like the beforehand. I gotta like get my shit in order. I gotta post my videos. I gotta get my stuff ready because I'm gonna be distracted. MK says, "David, would you ever have Slavoj Žižek on the show?" Sure. He's an interesting character. Or I could just have like Aaron Brown on the show and just have him do an impression of Žižek. If anyone's seen Aaron Brown's impression of Žižek, it is spot on. Bavaria says, "Search a win for truckers is the clip of Rebel on the Hill." Okay, let me see. How recent is it? Because it's like not coming up. A win for truckers. I searched that exactly. Oh, it's in the that's the thumbnail. Okay. The actual title is different. I just want to see who's in this segment. I'm not going to watch the whole fucking thing. It's 10 minutes long. Jesus Christ. Do I want to watch this? Look, I really just want to see Ryan Grimm's. I want to see what Ryan Grimm does with this, because that will tell me how this segment went. I'm not going to watch because it's too long, but I'll just
-7. So
hold up, double audio here.
viewers should be aware of that and be thankful to you for making time for us. So tell us, what's going on. Obviously, the U.S. reporting has been fairly shoddy and condemning, and of course, it's being condemned by the Canadian government. So what's happening?
All right, let's get ready for the bullshit.
Well, I've been on the ground here since the.
For those that don't know, Rebel is like Alex Jones in Canada. That's what this is.
28th of January, and since then. There has been trucks basically everywhere throughout the city of Ottawa, mainly in the downtown core. Now, since the 28th, I've seen the same number of trucks on the ground here, and it's become quite clear at this point that the truckers aren't going anywhere, and they just want these mandates lifted here in Canada.
It's interesting because
they're calling to get rid of Justin Trudeau. Like, they were trying to form a coalition with the other parties. There's a lot more going on.
They were reporting, I think, on Sunday. The reports that I was reading out of course, like the mainstream news coming out of Canada was that the trucks were leaving, that they were getting rid of all the trucks from downtown Ottawa, that they were going to be.
It's basically, it's what? 3-on-1 here for Ryan Grimm. Poor Ryan Grimm. I don't know if he has the personality to really combat all this bullshit coming at once.
Gone by the end of the night. So you're saying that's not true?
Well, look, can't really see behind me here, but there's trucks behind me, trucks in front of me. Like I said, I haven't.
Keep in mind there were supposed to be 50,000 truckers. That was the claims being made. 50,000 truckers. He's pointing to 3 behind him, 3 in front of him. The bridge was mostly being blocked by Ford F-150s. And a lot of the truckers that are there, by the way, as I discussed in a previous video, and I showed you examples, that they're the bosses. The boss is showing up here. The trucking industry is one of the absolute worst for treatment of workers. They're often categorized as contractors when they're actual employees, meaning they have less protections, and their employers, their bosses, get to skirt a lot of regulations around how they're treated. There's wage theft going on. They make up a massive portion of the amount of labor violations in Canada because of the way that a small number of trucking companies treat their workers. None of that's being brought up here. Why? Because it's not a working class uprising. It's not about the working class at all. Or they would be talking about those issues, those massive, very important issues actually facing truckers. None of that's being addressed here. It's supposedly about the vaccine, yet they're talking about getting rid of the government and they're occupying these areas in their pickup trucks as opposed to, their actual trucks. But again, yes, there are some of them there, as you see, but 50,000. Where is the 50,000 truckers? Please show me. Show me the 50,000 truckers. Have not seen any of them.
I haven't really seen any trucks leave, and I've been speaking to so many truckers throughout my time here, and none of them have insinuated that they have any plans on leaving anytime soon. Like I just said, they really believe that they can make a difference and get these mandates lifted. So they don't want to leave until they at least hear some response from the government and potentially get these mandates.
What does that sign say? Oh, it's in French. Well, that's a problem.
Mandates lifted. It's unprecedented, and we're just here to follow it wherever it goes.
And Lincoln, some of the critics of the trucker protest have linked it to kind of far-right fringe movements.
That's me.
And
Look at that.
your own network has been linked to far-right fringe networks as well. I think you guys took a lot of criticism for very favorable coverage of the Unite the Right rally down in Charlottesville, which was an explicitly grotesque kind of white supremacist event. Why doesn't that give people a real sense of foreboding about where this movement does come from?
I can't comment on any of that. What I can tell you is that from me being on the ground here, actually talking to the people here, actually being in the thick of it every single day, I've seen it's.
That was a master skirting of the question there. Incredible.
Nothing but peace here. It's peaceful people, peaceful Canadians from all walks of life, literally from all walks of life, And it's been really hard to be a Canadian over the past 2 years. We've been consistently in and out of lockdowns, and the truckers are here, and the truckers are giving hope to a lot of Canadians that we might actually see these mandates lifted. So as far as Justin Trudeau's called the protesters here, the demonstrators, a fringe minority, but I'd have to disagree with that. I've seen nothing but the opposite. And
based on what? A few hundred people? Like, do you know how many people are in the country? This is a fringe. These are a fringe amount of people. Poll after poll after poll shows the vast majority of Canadians not only are vaccinated, also support vaccine mandates. So again, we only have vaccine mandates in certain cases, but they support like hospital workers. They support schools having vaccine mandates. So all this is just complete bullshit, but it shows you how he's very clear about keeping the conversation limited in terms of what he has seen. Oh, I've talked to all these truckers. I've only seen people, and they're just calling for an end to these mandates. And yeah, come on. Like, you're telling me this guy didn't see some more shit? Come on.
It's, like I said,
absurd.
It's people from all walks of life, left, right, it doesn't matter.
Right, but the Charlottesville protest was indeed a fringe, racist minority. So why should we be able to trust the judgment of the far-right media that this one is different?
Good question.
Like I said, I can't comment on any of those incidences. All I can tell you is that you've seen from my footage.
See? He's not going to answer the question. Guys, I hope no one's fooled by this bullshit. Like, look who was praising this stuff. You have the Alex Jones of Canada, that network praising this shit. You have actual white nationalists, a history. You look up these videos. Pat King is one of them. Look up videos of the people talking about the need to have a pure white race. Like, these are the organizers behind this convoy. This is the same. They're just funneling people into the right. None of this is about actual working class issues facing truckers, or else they'd be talking about wage theft. They'd be talking about the misclassification of truckers as contractors. They'd be raising these serious working class trucker issues, and they simply don't. I'm not sure how much more I can take of this. I got to go soon because I have a family. But let's take a little bit more and then get going.
On Twitter, we have a website called convoyreports.com. On that website, you can see for yourself that it is people from all walks of life. Literally every type of person, every type of Canadian. Canada is such a diverse country, and it really shows in the.
Yes, all walks of people can take 2 weeks off of work to go hang out and at a barbecue outside in Ottawa. Come on.
This demonstration, and that's my job here, is to show what's really happening, wherever the story leads, and that's what I picked up from being here.
Right, and there's been a lot more coverage on this than just Rebel News. I mean, we can't just say, well, it's because of a right-wing organization was covering it, so therefore it must be right-wing. Lincoln, let me ask.
That's not what Ryan Grimm was saying. Ryan Grimm was talking about the positive coverage of this and them pushing this and how that relates to them also pushing things like Charlottesville. Like, Jesus, just the dishonest. How does Ryan fucking sit there and take this? So, like, it's 3-on-1 here. He's got no opportunity. He has like one chance to speak. Does he have anything else? Oh my God. That's
Still
it?
getting fuel down.
I mean, why are we talking about
Seems like an easy.
trucks
Oh, he
are
tries.
still getting fuel down here. They're still running, and quite frankly, the truckers wouldn't be able to be out here without the fuel because it is so cold.
Yeah. All right. Sounds like it. You stay warm. Jeez.
And before we let you, just curious, why not comment on Charlottesville? Were you not there at the time, or you don't want to weigh in on the organization's role in covering Charlottesville? That's something that's still a little causing a little bit of discomfort here.
I mean, why are we talking about
seems like an easy one.
We're talking about the trucker protest. I mean, it just seems like an odd.
Oh my God. These fucking propagandists. Unfucking believable. Yeah. Ryan Grimm should diversify his questions, though. Like, bring up why aren't you bringing up? Have you seen any discussions about them discussing how truckers are facing wage theft, how they see a massive portion of labor violations, and none of this is being addressed at this convoy? Why is it only about mask mandates? Why is it only about vaccine mandates? Like, you got to insert some of that stuff too. It can't just be. You can't just trying to associate them with the previous coverage, which I get also shows something, but you have to diversify how you bring up these issues, because that's how you really expose how this is not a working class convoy. But anyways, I really have to go, so I'm going to answer the last super chats here. Where was I? Rocket Reindeer says, David, do you think the convoy support is 30% as in Ledger poll? I know conservatives who just despise them, so wonder how accurate that is. I don't know if I've seen their poll or not. Well, regardless, it's I have no idea. I know it's less than half, so somewhere between like 10% and 30% doesn't seem out of the question. But it also depends on the question, right? Like, some of the questions are, do you support the sentiment of the convoy? Like, I can see people sympathizing with not wanting a mandate. Like, people that even support mandates, I can see them sympathizing with, hey, I get it if you're, against this and you want to protest that. Just like I just finished saying, if you just want to protest mandates, that's whatever, that's your right, do that. But that doesn't mean you support what they're doing currently and what the convoy actually is. So a lot of it's in the question. But even in that stat, clearly, not many people actually support this. Fly Tomber Fly says, yes, hope Ryan G can stick it out. It is brutal. Christina says, do you think Ontario will nix all vax passports? I don't think, not in the short term. Maybe at some point. Four Wall says, have you seen the dystopian images from the Olympics? I saw one where it's like it was like, what's it called? The high jump. It's like the big giant slope. It was in the middle of like this completely brown, like dystopian manufacturing area. It was wild to see the big zoom out of that. So yeah, I saw a little bit. I forgot the Olympics are even going on. That's how crazy this shit is. But anyways, I gotta go. So Matt W says, not a working class protest. Makes sense. Thanks. There you go. Glad I can clear that up. All right. Time to go now. I have to go. Thank you all for showing up, and see you next week. Goodbye.